Folks, we're focusing on mechanics, so just sit back and enjoy the ride for today's episode of Dev Diary, the series where I try to make my own video games. Indeed, we're doing some learning today, so cohesion wasn't a very high priority. This explains why the player controls a little capybara with a jetpack, of which can only keep our furry friend airborne for so long before it needs to recharge. But that's not the only tool in the Cappy's toolkit. By left-clicking, the player can toss out a nice green coconut, and what makes the player's coconut so special is that after a bit, it will in fact explode. And surprise, surprise, that's not all our capybara is packing. The final tool in our capybara's toolkit is a grappling hook. By right-clicking, the player can do their best Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, flinging their hook in the aim direction, to which it then will try to clamp onto the nearest wall and then slowly reel them in. And fun fact, I wanted the control/hook behavior to be a lot snappier, but snappy seems kind of difficult to pull off in GameMaker's physics system. Or, there's just still a lot I've yet to learn about the thing. Now, if you thought a capybara hero was weird, just wait until you meet our roster of bad guys. Like up first, which I call the Mimic, because it's meant to look similar to the player's coconuts. Now, this little nuisance will occasionally attempt to fling itself at the player, but most often leading to it trapping itself at the bottom of a level, which, in turn kinda makes the lowest level of the room the most dangerous over time. Our second enemy is the Bat, and is similar to the Mimic in that it'll try to throw itself at the player, but they're bats with horrible eyesight and no sonar. So, instead they just act on total vibes. And don't get it twisted, sometimes their vibes are very on point. Our third enemy, the Fish, is arguably the most basic and benign of the bunch. They will simply swim back and forth, minding their own business, until the player gets too close, that is, in which they will self-destruct, causing an explosion which is just as powerful as the player's explosion. And that's half the cast of enemies, so for our halftime show, allow me to remind you that if you enjoy the content, supporting me on Patreon is the best way to help me keep making it. Doing so can get you access to exclusive content and even early access to the weekly Dev Diary videos. Now, enemy number 4 is a potential wildcard. They navigate the room in random directions, and being ghostly in nature means that these are the only entity that are able to move through walls. And much like the Fish, they will mind their own business. But again, if the player gets all up in their personal space, they will start to generate little flames in random amounts. Now, the flames will disappear over time, but get too many of these little ghosts in one spot and suddenly you're surrounded by little infernos. Our final enemy is almost the complete opposite of the previous in that it is the only stationary enemy in the bunch and must spawn attached to a wall, which is very important. Again, they mind their own business until the player gets too close, to which it'll start releasing these goopy little bubbles of pain, which, as the descriptive name suggests, hurts if touched. Thankfully, these bubbles will pop if they touch a wall, and as a byproduct of being attached to walls, it can actually be difficult to hit the enemy and not the wall that it's attached to. So, players will need a keen eye to take these stationary baddies out. And that's the roster of enemies, a number of which are spawned per round. And the goal is for the player to take them all out before being taken out. And while that may be the gameplay goal, the goal for this project was to create some type of gameplay loop revolving around a 2D platformer powered completely by the physics system, including using the joint system that I started learning with our recent crane game project. And the most interesting bit that I discovered this week is that my usual method of level generation doesn't work well with the physics system, because each tile is its own wall object. Like, there is a distinct hiccup as the level loads, and I just have no idea how to fix that, which makes the potential for randomly generated levels in the future less likely until I can figure out a better method. Other than that, overall it was a pretty successful experiment, but this was the first time that I tried creating a floating/flying enemy, and that was kind of difficult. Like, the bat enemy being so random in its flying behaviors may be only 70% intentional. It's just further proof that I've still got a lot left to learn. So it was good that most of this week's project was focused on the code rather than the aesthetic, which, yes, if it wasn't obvious with the random roster of enemies, or, the fact that the player controls a strapped capybara, or, the whole thing taking place on, graph paper with stickers, the visuals for this one were definitely done last minute. I don't know, maybe there is a story to be told there. I mean, you know what? In fact, what do you think that the story is? Why should a capybara with a jetpack, grappling hook, and explosive coconuts want to go to war with exploding fish, careless bats, chaotic evil coconuts, ghostly flames, and bobo baddies? Be sure to leave your thoughts and ideas in the comments. And while you're at it, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, and why not subscribe if you're new to the channel? With that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.